Brace yourselves. The story you have been fed about Rick Ross and 50 Cent for the last 18 years was never really about Rick Ross and 50 Cent. Say that with Rick Ross's whole chest. It was never about the lawn mower. It was never about the commercial flight to Colombia. It was never about the money sandwich photo or the coffee table made of $100 bills. Every single insult, every mugshot meme, every Officer Ricky joke, every fake bankruptcy roast, every viral post that trended for 18 straight years was smoke. Thick, expensive, beautifully packaged smoke. And while the entire hip-hop world stared at the smoke, something else was moving behind the curtain. Something that connects a Fayetteville estate, a private aviation hangar in Miami, a Wingstop licensing arrangement, and a paper trail that allegedly stretches from a Florida correctional office all the way to an overseas server most of the internet does not even know exists. Nobody caught it. Not the blogs, not the podcasts, not the reaction channels dropping hot takes every 12 minutes. But 50 Cent caught it. And the moment 50 Cent decided to say the quiet part out loud, the entire architecture that Rick Ross spent 2 decades building started shaking on its own foundation. So sit down, turn the volume up, because what is coming next is not a rap beat breakdown. This is a forensic autopsy, the most expensive misdirection in modern hip-hop history. And by the end of the next few minutes, your eyes are going to be wide open in a way they have never been open before. Let me repeat this so nobody misses it. The Rick Ross versus 50 Cent feud was a decoy. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Start where the smoke started. January 2009. Mafia music leaks online. Rick Ross drops the first bomb. Wraps Rick Ross in luxury imagery. Plant a flag on a boss persona built brick by brick out of Miami excess. And what does 50 Cent do in return? 50 Cent does not counter with a diss record. 50 Cent counters with paperwork. That is the detail everyone remembers wrong. Curtis Jackson did not go bar for bar. Curtis Jackson went document for document. And that single tactical choice, the choice to fight a music war with public records instead of 8 bars over a beat, is a thumbprint. That is the fingerprint on the entire 18-year operation. Because 50 Cent has never once, not one time, ever come at Rick Ross the way a rapper comes at a rapper. 50 Cent has always come at Rick Ross the way a forensic accountant comes at a suspect. And nobody in the culture ever stopped to ask why. Officer Ricky was not a punchline. Officer Ricky was a receipt, a public record pulled from a Florida payroll database. And once you understand that the very first shot in this war was a document reveal, the whole shape of the last 18 years starts to look different. Because if the first shot was a receipt, what has 50 Cent been holding all this time? What has 50 Cent been sitting on, waiting on, saving on, waiting to release when the moment was loudest and the audience was largest? That is not a rap beef. That is a slow motion investigation with a soundtrack. Fast forward. 2015. 50 Cent files Chapter 11. Rick Ross throws a party. Rick Ross tells the world Rick Ross's own legal team pulled up Curtis Jackson's bank accounts, saw a 2-bedroom apartment. Felt bad for Curtis Jackson. Rick Ross laughs. Rick Ross posts. Rick Ross builds a whole content cycle out of the alleged poverty of Rick Ross's rival. And here's the part that will burn a hole through your screen. 50 Cent walked away from that Chapter 11 filing with more capital, more equity, and more leverage than 50 Cent had before the paperwork was ever signed. Chapter 11 is not bankruptcy the way regular people understand bankruptcy. Chapter 11 is a restructuring. Chapter 11 is a legal shield. Chapter 11 is a strategy. And while Rick Ross mocked the filing, Curtis Jackson quietly sold a company. Say the number out loud. For billion. For billion with a B. Rick Ross was laughing at a man who was engineering an exit worth more than the entire Maybach music catalog combined. And nobody caught it. Nobody in the culture connected the dots. Because everybody was too busy watching the smoke, watching the money sandwich, watching the coffee table cash, watching the fridge full of dollars, watching the show. That was the show. The show was working exactly the way it was designed to work. Which brings the story to the promised land. Fayetteville, Georgia. The 109-room estate, once owned by Evander Holyfield. Rick Ross buys the property, splashes the property across every music video, every social media post, every interview, every documentary. The mansion becomes the brand. The brand becomes the mansion. And here is where the analysts on TMZ, the reaction podcasts, and even the hip-hop blogs went blind together. Because nobody, and this is a part that should make the hair on the back of your neck stand up, nobody ever asked how a 109-room mansion, a private jet, a warehouse of classic cars, a national restaurant licensing arrangement, and multiple Miami properties were all being carried simultaneously on the balance sheet of a Maybach music group release schedule has been, statistically, in decline for the better part of a decade. Rick Ross's last album reportedly moved fewer than 10,000 streams on release day. 10,000, not 10 million. 10,000. And yet the promised land grew. The jet got Starlink. The Wingstop portfolio expanded. The car collection multiplied. How? How does the math? Where is the money actually coming from? That is a question 50 Cent has been circling quietly, publicly, for 18 straight years. And that is a question every reaction channel refused to ask, because asking the question out loud would ruin the entertainment for everyone. Now bolt this onto the current wave of headlines. Federal vehicles reportedly spotted near properties associated with William Leonard Roberts II. Videos of tow trucks near a Miami private aviation hangar. Bystander footage of restricted access points. Official notices attached to gates. Transport equipment lined up near a storage facility rumored to house Rick Ross's classic vehicle collection. None of this, and this is important, none of this has been officially confirmed by federal authorities as of this recording. Everything circulating online right now is unverified. The clips are unverified. The screenshots are unverified. The alleged ledgers pulled from an overseas server are unverified. Say the word again for the algorithm. Unverified. But here is what is not unverified. Here is what is not rumor. Here is what is not speculation. 50 Cent, on a live broadcast that has been replayed millions of times in the last 72 hours, reportedly said this. Rick Ross talked about Curtis Jackson's bankruptcy records for 10 straight years. Rick Ross told the world Rick Ross's own legal team looked at Curtis Jackson's accounts. Rick Ross laughed. Rick Ross posted. Rick Ross monetized. And now, according to 50 Cent's own words on that broadcast, Curtis Jackson's team dug up what 50 Cent described as the real ledgers from the dark web. And 50 Cent then said on camera that the promised land is not an asset. 50 Cent said the promised land is a shell game. And 50 Cent said the government just got the master keys. Those are not rap lyrics. Those are not diss track bars. Those are sentences a forensic accountant would say. Those are sentences a federal prosecutor would say. Those are sentences a corporate lawyer would say with the shades drawn and the phone on silent. So slow down, rewind, read the room, because the pattern is now impossible to unsee. Every time in the last 18 years that Rick Ross tried to hit 50 Cent with a rap punch, 50 Cent responded with a piece of paper, a payroll record, a corrections officer photo, a courtroom pull, a financial insinuation, a Wingstop question, a grass-cutting joke that was never really about the grass. Because when a billionaire mocks another wealthy man for cutting Rick Ross's own 400-acre lawn, that is not a class joke. That is a cash flow question dressed up as a class joke. 50 Cent is asking, in front of an entire culture, why would a man with an active jet, a national restaurant portfolio, and a 109-room estate be personally operating a John Deere at 7 in the morning? And the answer that Rick Ross has always given, that Rick Ross likes it, that Rick Ross finds it peaceful, that Rick Ross enjoys a hobby, might be true. But 50 Cent has never been asking about the hobby. 50 Cent has been asking about the payroll, about the staff, about the operational cost of property that big, about whether the promised land is actually generating income, or whether the promised land is a very expensive stage prop bankrolled by something the culture has never been allowed to see clearly. And then the flip side, the moment Rick Ross was photographed at a commercial airport in a third world terminal, no security, no assistant, no team, no right-hand man, waiting on a gate like a regular passenger. The internet had a field day. Rick Ross had an explanation. The jet, allegedly, was being upgraded with Starlink, a $500,000 Wi-Fi installation. Fair enough. But 50 Cent did not attack the explanation. 50 Cent attacked the visual. Because 50 Cent understands, better than any rapper alive, that in the modern attention economy, the visual is the ledger, the commercial flight is the balance sheet, the lawn mower is the cash flow statement. Every image is a data point, and every data point, once collected, once cataloged, once cross-referenced, tells a story that no press release can undo. And now, allegedly, according to unverified reports circulating across every major social platform, that story is being told to people wearing federal badges instead of Yankee fitteds and platinum chains and diamond crosses. Here is the part nobody wants to say. Ready? Here it is. If, and this is a big, beautiful if, the alleged ledger's 50 Cent reference on that broadcast are real, and if the alleged federal activity near properties associated with William Leonard Roberts II is real, and if the alleged review of restaurant licensing arrangements connected to Rick Ross's business portfolio is real, then the last 18 years of the Rick Ross versus 50 Cent narrative was never a rap beef. It was 50 Cent on the world's biggest stage, publishing an investigation in real time. And nobody read the investigation as an investigation because 50 Cent packaged the investigation as comedy. That is not a rivalry. That is a masterclass in narrative warfare. 50 Cent hid a receipt inside every joke. 50 Cent hid a subpoena inside every meme. 50 Cent hid a financial disclosure inside every Instagram post about a lawnmower. And Rick Ross, allegedly focused on the volume, missed the frequency. Rick Ross argued with the noise while 50 Cent broadcast a signal directly to the audience that mattered. Now hear this. None of this proves Rick Ross did anything wrong. None of this. Nothing in this recording is a legal accusation. Nothing in this recording is a verdict. Nothing in this recording is confirmed by any federal agency, any court filing, or any authenticated document. Everything circulating online is, as of this moment, allegation and speculation. Rick Ross has a presumption of innocence. Rick Ross has a right to respond. Rick Ross has a right to defend the empire Rick Ross built. And Rick Ross, if history is any indicator, will respond loudly, richly, and on Rick Ross's own terms. But the culture, the audience, the people watching from the outside, the millions of viewers who spent 18 years laughing at Officer Ricky and mocking Curtis Jackson's Chapter 11, owe themselves a moment of honesty. And the honest question is simple. What if the joke was never on 50 Cent? What if the joke was always on the audience? What if every single one of us was watching a magic trick and clapping for the wrong hand the entire time? Let that land. Let that sit. Because the moment you accept that possibility, the entire timeline reorganizes itself in front of your eyes. 2008 BET Awards backstage tension. Not a rap thing. A first look. 2009 Mafia music leak. Not a rap thing. A provocation designed to force a response. 2009 Officer Ricky reveal. Not a rap thing. A document release. 2015 Chapter 11 filing. Not a bankruptcy. A restructuring under legal cover. 2015 $4 billion company exit. Not a coincidence. A capital repositioning. 2020's lawn mower jokes. Not shade. Cash flow inquiries. 2020's commercial flight photograph. Not embarrassment. Evidence. 2026 live broadcast ledger reveal. Not a diss. A publication. And 2026 alleged federal activity at properties reportedly associated with William Leonard Roberts II. Not a raid, because nothing is officially confirmed. But not nothing, either. Because when 18 years of paper trails suddenly light up on the same 72-hour news cycle, that is not coincidence. That is choreography executed by somebody who's been reading a room for 2 full decades without ever blinking. And here's the biggest question of all, the one that will keep the internet awake for the next month. If 50 Cent has actually been running a 2-decade forensic operation disguised as a rap beef, then who else is on that ledger? Because ledgers do not just contain one name. Ledgers contain networks. Ledgers contain co-signers. Ledgers contain accountants, business partners, licensees, silent investors, real estate agents, jet brokers, and the people who signed the paperwork for the promised land. Say the sentence again. Ledgers contain networks. And that is the second shoe that is not yet dropped. Because if even a fraction of the online speculation about additional documents, additional names, and additional overseas server material is accurate, then Rick Ross is not the finish line. Rick Ross is the doorway. And the hallway behind that door might be very, very long. That is why every executive in hip-hop is quietly refreshing news feeds at 3 a.m. That is why alleged screenshots of nervous group chats between music industry insiders have been leaking for 48 straight hours. That is why one anonymous executive reportedly told a major outlet that if any additional records are ever released, the fallout, and this is a direct paraphrase, would not stop at one artist. Read that sentence again. Would not stop at one artist. So who is standing in the hallway behind the door, and who is holding the door open? And still, the smart move is caution, because rumors move faster than facts, and social media rewards speed over accuracy. Every viral post, every reaction clip, every screenshot with a red circle around it has to be weighed against a reality that nothing has been officially confirmed. Nothing. The alleged tow trucks might have been routine transport. The alleged federal vehicles might have been unrelated. The alleged ledgers might be fabricated. The alleged overseas server might not exist. The alleged Wingstop licensing changes might be normal corporate housekeeping. Every one of those alleged elements has to survive verification before any of it becomes reality. But here's the thing about smoke. Smoke does not require fire to exist. Smoke only requires the appearance of fire. And once the culture believes the fire is real, the brand damage begins whether the fire is real or not. That is the trap Rick Ross is currently sitting inside. That is the trap 50 Cent has been engineering, brick by brick, for 18 years. And that is a trap that no amount of Instagram posts, no amount of Fayetteville lawn mowing selfies, no amount of Columbia performance videos, and no amount of Wingstop press releases can pull Rick Ross out of if the culture decides the smoke is thick enough to matter tonight. So what happens next? That is the last question. And here's the honest answer. Nobody knows. Not the blogs, not the podcasts, not the reaction channels, not the anonymous executives on background, not the influencers pretending to have inside sources. Nobody. What happens next depends on whether any of the alleged documents are ever verified. What happens next depends on whether any federal agency ever publicly confirms any of the reported activity. What happens next depends on whether Rick Ross steps to a microphone with a lawyer beside Rick Ross and dismantles every claim one by one. What happens next depends on whether 50 Cent has, as the online rumors suggest, additional material queued up in a second and third wave. What happens next depends on the algorithm, on the culture, on the courts, and on the calendar. But one thing is now absolutely certain. The Rick Ross versus 50 Cent narrative will never be read the same way again. Because once you see the pattern, once you see the receipts hidden inside the punchlines, once you see the accountant hiding behind a rapper, you cannot go back to watching this the way you watched it before. This is no longer a rap beef. This is a case study. And every single person who ever laughed at Officer Ricky, every single person who ever mocked Curtis Jackson's Chapter 11, every single person who ever thought this rivalry was petty, silly, or entertainment first, has to sit with the possibility that the biggest, longest, loudest joke in modern hip-hop was actually the most patient investigation the culture has ever witnessed in real time and in real color. Now the mic is in the audience's hand. Tell the truth in the comments. Did anyone catch this pattern before today? Anyone? Did anyone connect the Officer Ricky reveal to the Chapter 11 flip, to the lawnmower jokes, to the commercial flight photograph, to the alleged ledger release? Because if the answer is no, and the answer is almost certainly no, then the culture owes 50 Cent something bigger than a diss track ranking. The culture owes 50 Cent a rewatch, a rewrite, a reread of the entire timeline. And Rick Ross, whatever happens in the next 30 days, whatever the federal reports turn out to be, whatever the alleged documents turn out to say, deserves the same due process every citizen deserves, no more and no less. Say the words again. Due process. Presumption of innocence. Verified facts over viral screenshots. Because the culture has burned people before on rumors that turn out to be lies. And the culture will burn people again if the culture does not learn to slow down. So watch, wait, verify, and keep your eyes locked on the hallway behind the door. Because the second shoe, if a second shoe exists, will not tiptoe when the second shoe drops. The second shoe will land. Loud. And when the second shoe lands, the entire music industry is going to feel the floor shake underneath every deal, every catalog, and every hidden shell arrangement still standing in silence. If any of this landed, if any of this hit different, if any of this made the last 18 years reorganize inside the head, then do the thing, hit the like, hit the subscribe button, drop the comment, share the video with a friend who still thinks this was just a rap beef, because the next wave is coming, the next update is coming, and the next chapter is going to be even louder than the last chapter. Stay locked in, stay skeptical, stay curious, and do not, under any circumstance, look away from the promised land, from the Wingstop portfolio, from the overseas server rumors, or from the man in the tinted lawnmower cabin cutting 400 acres of grass at 7 in the morning. Because somewhere in the middle of all that noise, the real story is still moving. Quietly, patiently, exactly the way 50 Cent designed the real story to move. Watch closely. The next update lands soon. Do not blink, B.